today are two teens, Nia Braid and Davon Williams. They will be representing our teen audience by asking our podium some questions today.
Oh, hi, I'm Nia Braid. I'm a junior at Baltimore City College High School, and I'm here to represent the teens in a positive way.
My name is Davon Williams. I'm a senior at Loyola Blakefield, and I'm here to do the same thing as Nia.
So you guys ready to nail them tonight?
Oh yeah, we have a lot of good questions in store for them. I hope they're ready.
We're going to confuse them. We're going to leave them blank-faced. They're going to give us the fish look. We got them.
Dr. Martin, I have a question for you. Many of today's youth fail to see the importance of the civil rights movement. And I was wondering, what do you do at the Great Blacks and Whites Museum? What programs do you have that incorporate the youth?
Well, one of the major services we provide, I think, is helping people, particularly youth, because the museum, in our mission statement, the museum, the primary reason for establishing the museum was to provide youth with the motivation to achieve, to have historical role models that allowed them to understand the importance of connecting with your ancestors, with the person down the street who's feeding children, and with the notion that history continues and history lives, and therefore the foundation that someone lays in the past guides the future. So for me, when listening to Mr. Mitchell's answer about the church, for example, when you look at the way that the role that the church played in the Underground Railroad movement, or the role that the church played just in fighting slavery, AME, the Baptist Church, many of those churches evolved simply as a response to the conditions of the slaves, and played a vital role. When you look at the role of the church in the civil rights movement, for example, but we can't appreciate the church if we step outside of the history. So what Great Blacks and Whites attempts to do for youth is to put them inside of the history, so that they understand the struggles that have allowed them to experience any number of positive things if they take advantage of those things. The civil rights movement was necessary because 100 years after slavery ended, those forces that existed, that defined slavery, also existed by another name that made the civil rights movement necessary. So if children can understand that youth rose to the occasion throughout history and throughout the world, that when children got on buses for the freedom rides, that took a tremendous amount of courage. When they faced the water hoses and the dogs, that took a tremendous amount of courage. When children were lynched in America for speaking out, or sometimes as a means of control, it meant huge number of sacrifices on your part. When you look at Emmett Till and the fact that this young child, 14 years old, who became a martyr because he was brutally killed in such an inhumane way, if there is such a thing as humanity, but that the death of Emmett Till helped to spark the civil rights movement in a way that nothing else might have. And therefore that young people can make a difference. When you look at the fact that in South Africa, the Soweto youth helped in a major way to lead the charge that eventually brought the South African government down. Children make a difference, and the future of this world depends in a great part on our children.
Thank you.
I know amongst my youth peers, a lot of times the N-word comes up, and I know a lot. It was a word used to degrade black people back in the day, and it's lit where a lot of people say that they changed the nigger into nigga to make it more acceptable amongst our community. And I would just like to know how you feel about that.
Well, I just get personally offended, and I'll probably get myself hurt because I try to stop young people every time I hear them use it. They try to say they're using it affectionately. And I just know, having been in the sit-in movement and having my head beat in and having electric cattle prods put in me in Plaquemine County, Louisiana, by racist white sheriffs, and then being beaten in Annapolis over the head, not by the owners of the restaurant, but an Annapolis City policeman, and the entire time calling me using the racial epithet. And we can't allow the continuation of that. I know when Amos and Andy was on the radio, Diana didn't even have a television show then, and we had to sit around, and my father, if we dared listen to it, he'd come home and listen to that, and they were using those racial epithets, we'd be in trouble. But I think it is wrong, that you've got to take a stand against it. That is another attempt by culture, and even some people who look like us, as if they're trying to do something worthwhile, and to say that they're using it affectionately or it's just part of show business. I took the time to watch the entire thing on Tupac. There's a special that he did, and my daughter showed me that. And he didn't believe in any of that. He was just trying to get attention. But he ought to have been ashamed of himself, and no one had taken the time, simply because he had money and other things. Nobody would take the time to condemn him. And all the people who had some sense weren't there. His mother couldn't contribute to nurturing him because of her own problems, and all the other adults who were around him were looking to make money off this young man. So that just in your own world, you don't have to change the world, but don't allow your friends, family members, anybody else to use it. Because think of it, every time, that's what that white sheriff, the Klan, called our people before they dragged them out and began to beat him. That's what they called Emmett Till, before they bound his body with that cotton gin wheel and threw him in the river.
Okay, my question posed to you is, it seems that sometimes laws against women and children seem to be less harsh than laws for men, and I'm just curious about how you feel.
Well, if you look at American society, those laws that act against oppressed people, or people who are not a part of the mainstream, or people who historically have faced inequities, those laws were made by men, and continue to be made by men. Blacks and women and other minorities have had to fight for and continue to have to fight for their place in the legal system and in the society. When you look at wealth in this nation, and the fact that wealth is in the control of men, and even wealth that is in the control of white women, that wealth tends to be shared with white men who represent the power structure in this nation. So it is quite logical, not fair, but it makes all the sense in the world that you would find a system in which inequities against women exist simply because the inequities were created by men.
And Judge Johnson, a question that I have for you is, I haven't lived in many other cities, but growing up and living in Baltimore City, I noticed that there's a jail built right next door to a school. I'm just curious how you feel about that irony that a prestigious, predominantly black school is built right next door to a jail which is predominantly black. Where there's a predominantly black inmates. I'm just curious how you feel about that irony.
Well, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. They have plenty of places to build jails other than next to a school, or plenty of places to build schools other than next to a jail. It projects a bad image, just as bad as the rap music that's negative have on the community. That could also have that negative effect on the school children, and they could find many, many other places to build it. I would doubt if that you would see, if it was just the reverse, it was a white school and the inmates were majority white, I doubt if they would put one in the same. They would put them next to each other. But again, the white power structure is doing the decision making, and that's what they do. It's another way of demonizing blacks, the young black mind, and to make the child feel inferior. Grow up with that and accept that as a way of life. It's another part of the overall society's oppression of blacks. But we don't have to let it be that way. We can change things. We can change it all by sticking together like we did in the 60s, for example, to move forward. And I'd just like to commend this museum and the good doctor here for having it as a place wherein our youth can see part of their history, the good part of their history. And I think it's a marvelous idea. If we had the museum next to the school as opposed to the jail, then we would be much better off.
And if I could add, when earlier someone asked a question about what do you tell those youth who say that they, or people who say that they don't feel the need to vote. If we exercised political power, if we understood the power of the vote, when we pull together and vote in enough numbers, then we would know that with that power, if someone understood that they had to be accountable to you because you voted in large blocks and your vote mattered, it didn't get lost in the fray, then they wouldn't so easily put a jail next to a school, because there would be voices loud and strong crying out against that and making it clear that if you put this jail next to my school, you will not have the power that you now exercise that allows you to think that you can do so. Those are the kinds of messages that we need to start with our children, starting young, with young children, giving them a sense of what real power means. Power often is not money, but power is the ability to influence what happens to you and in your life and in your future.
Thank you. I attend a predominantly black school, Baltimore City College High School. And this past school year, one thing that was brought up was the fact that my school is 85% African American, but we have a less than 5% African American teacher ratio. And I remember somebody making a comment that by being a predominantly black school, maybe we should have more black teachers who could relate to the African American students. I'm just curious about how you feel about that.
Well, I agree that we should have more black teachers there, no question, to serve as role models for the students. Again, if it was just the reverse, the white society would never tolerate such. They do it to us because we don't vote. If we voted the way in which we should, they wouldn't dare do that. They would change it around, where we would have more African American teachers there in representative numbers, roughly reflecting what the population of the school was. But we don't vote, therefore we don't have the political power